going to show our team how to maintain our table saw. Periodically, this saw needs to have the bearings lubed up with oil. Our first step is to clean the saw. And actually, before that, our first step really should be to shut it off. You can see there's a throw handle here for the safety switch. That red and black handle, make sure it's in the off position, and then you can't start the saw. So we know it's safe, it's de-energized. I'm gonna go about cleaning this now. And ready to do the oil. It's a skill saw heavy lube. Oil is what we currently use in there. There's 2 reservoirs, and we will tilt the table saw. There's a locking knob here on the shaft, and then this handle is what tilts the whole table. So we have our 2 oiling reservoirs. This one tucked way back here with a little piece of wood sticking out of it. And this one here has a wood cap on it. These are both reservoirs that hold the amount of oil. I usually don't mess with those. You see the filler cap here is usually where I put oil in. Okay. We're gonna service the power feeder on this. So we're gonna slide it out of the way, and I'll show you how to do that. You loosen this main locking arm here. This is important because it keeps it from twisting away from the blade. As soon as we loosen it, the whole arm can swing out of the way. But it's critical that we get it tightened back up really well so it doesn't move during operation. So we've raised up the table height here to get all the blade below the surface. Now we're going to remove our riving knife, our blade insert, and our side cover to expose the blade. There's 3/4 inch headed bolts on the riving knife. One of them is a slot you can see here, so the bottom one we don't need to fully remove, but this top one we do need to remove all the way, as it's a pin for removing that. You can see that this one came out of there, and we'll just set the riving knife out of the way. Now using a 9/16 wrench, we're going to remove these 3 bolts that hold the side cover on. Removing the blade cover, we expose access to getting the blade off. We're next going to find our large wrench, remove the throat plate insert, and take the blade off. With our board wedging the saw blade in place and our wrench on the nut, we're using this large 1 5/8 inch wrench. We want to be careful not to damage the carbide teeth of the blade. We're going to go clockwise to loosen it. And we'll take this off, and we'll take the blade off. This has a springed retainer, so it holds the blade centered on the shaft. Be careful not to damage the teeth of the blade. We can remove the blade. So we'll find our oil spout here. We'll lift it up, refill the oil. Here we are putting the new blade that's been sharpened into the saw. We'll put our washer on there and then our nut. Remember, it's counterclockwise to tighten it because it's a left-hand thread. Now that we have it snugged up by hand, we're going to take a big wrench and tighten it up with the wrench. So we'll put the side cover back on, inserting the 9/16 headed bolts, and we'll tighten them up with a 9/16 closed-end wrench. Before inserting the riving knife, make sure you put your throat plate back in the saw. Make sure there's no dust in there so it lands up nice and flush. So slide it behind the washer and the bolt, and we'll insert the other 3/4 headed bolt into the fixed hole. Then we'll tighten it up with the closed end of the 3/4 inch wrench. Yeah. So we want to tighten it as hard as we can. We've also made sure that the power feeder is right against the riving knife. That way our preset angle of out of parallel slightly against the fence is set between 1/4 and 3/8 in the distance of the power feeder body. So it's an arbitrary measurement, but you can see here we're 5 7/8. If we come to the front, we are
5 5/8.
So we're about 1/4 inch of tilt towards the fence. That's exactly what we want to keep the wood against the fence. We want the power feeder to accept a 3/4 thick board at the minimum, and at the maximum we want a 1 inch thick board. We know the power feeder is designed with 3/8 of travel in the gears of the power feeder wheels. So we want to see that all the wheels are at least have about a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch of purchase, of pinch on the board as it travels through. So that's a great height setting. I have a 5/4 thick board here that's been planed to 1/16. I want to be able to have this saw cut this 1/16 thick board just barely. So I'm going to set the tooth to ride right through that 1/16 board. So we've done all of our maintenance on the saw. We've got the power feeder locked back into the position where it's at. The fence is locked down for some 3/8 thick test cuts. Here's our board. We have a straight line rip edge we're going to use as our test cutting. And I don't have the dust collector turned on because I want you to be able to hear what we're listening for. We're listening for a well-tuned saw that runs without any extra vibration or noise. We're also listening to a cut with a new blade that's very clean and crisp. So here's our listen. There's the saw running really nice and clean, and listen to it under load and hear how the blade cuts and how the saw performs. We're listening for that really crisp and clean zink kind of ringing as the blade cuts.